Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Hull and Back podcast. I'm joined today by William Young, Ant Northgraves, and Nathaniel Wingham. Today we're going to be discussing a couple of different topics, varying between recapping the Fulham game, previewing the Bournemouth game, talking about some potential signings, and we're going to have a nice little fresh part in here called Ant's Rant. So that's one to look forward to. That's basically going to be something that's negged Ant out this week, so we're going to work on that one. So, first of all, I'd like to start by thanking all of our sponsors. We've got a couple of different partners. First one being Hull City Retro. If you don't know anything about these, I mentioned them on the last podcast. What they do is they recreate old Hull City shirts for people like ourselves that wasn't around at the time that fancy a bit of the old school shirt. Affordable prices and brilliant basically for the matchday atmosphere. A lot of people around the town are starting to wear these, so join in, get yourself involved. The second one is Hull Badgeman. This is the guy who stands outside the ground selling the badges. These can often be either a badge for who we're against or just a badge of the Hull City crest. Again, after the pandemic we've just been through, it's really important that we all plug together during this time and help each other out. FanHub is an app that we are partnered with at the moment. And what we do on this is we predict upcoming games. You can check into games where you're at. You can predict the starting lineup, and it's also where you can tag into what games you've been at, etc. So the last one I'd like to mention is Charlie Spalding Filmmaking. Charlie, I've known for a long time through the FIFA Factory. Around the town, he's making films, and he boasts a brilliant portfolio at the moment after working with people such as Jackie Abbott and brands like Adidas. So hopefully brings a lot to the table for ourselves, brings a bit of brand recognition, and hopefully we can help him grow in the local area as well. So without further ado, I'd like to move on to the Fulham game. So Will, would you like to start off in terms of what you thought of the Fulham game?
Well, I thought it was pretty much what I expected it to be. A team that's going to be near the top of the table. I think challenging, probably, in my opinion, was, if I had asked before the season, probably win the league. Comfortably defeating a side that's newly promoted, really. I thought City didn't play badly, though, despite that. I thought overall they were actually okay, especially compared to the Wednesday night against Derby. It could have been a lot worse. I expected Fulham to probably play a lot more devastating football against us, but I think at 2-0 they controlled it, but they seem to be quite happy relatively with what they had anyway.
Fair enough. I think we all agree on that one. We performed a lot better than Wednesday night, so there was definitely positives to take from the game. I mean, what about you, Ant? Do we walk away from Craven Cottage with a bit of pride, feeling good about the result? Not so much the result, the performance.
I do. I think when you put this league into perspective compared to what we was facing last season, we sort of need to remember that we're not going to be up there anymore. Them years have probably passed us for a little bit now, at least. What you can forgive as a fan when you're watching a game is effort. If you lose, but they've gone out there and they've given everything, you tend to be, more accepting in that loss, and you've gone, they played well. The QPR game was woeful to watch on it from start to end. So, I mean,
You mean the Derby game?
Derby game, yeah. So, understandably, a lot of frustration from that. And then when you move to playing a team like Fulham away, you're fearing for the worst, especially considering we went 2-0 down in the first half within like half an hour. You're thinking, oh, no, here we go. But no, they did. I think we more than matched them. We had a few good chances. It's just some regular issues appearing, like, being wasteful with chances and a few lapses at the back. But it's stuff that we can iron out and work on. So I'm not too worried. I think we played well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we all saw it, didn't we? I think we all thought the same thing as well. 2-0 down, you kind of go, oh, here we go. Against Fulham, they don't look like they're going to get beat this season. Let's be realistic. They look brilliant. They probably are going to get beat, but they don't look like they're going to get beat. But you instantly go, it's damage limitations. You've literally just got to try and keep this score down as low as possible. I don't think we actually did that. We stayed in what appeared to be like our third game. We tried to get forward. So it was impressive to see that. I mean, what for you, Nathaniel, what was different to the Derby game? Like, what stood out for you that was different?
Well, we weren't totally garbage. I think that was the main difference. I'm glad that we didn't have a podcast immediately after the Derby game, because that was really dire. Yeah,
No, I think we all just dodged that one.
I mean, we improved, but I mean, that's not saying much. But yeah, I mean, we created a few chances. It wasn't great. And again, we conceded at a set piece, which is disappointing.
Yeah, so moving on from that then, Nathaniel, what do you think we learned from the game then? What have we taken away from the Fulham game to be able to improve?
Well, I think maybe one thing we've learned is that, like last season, we perform better away from home. I mean, I think against a newly relegated side that spent, well, their squad's like 150 million worth compared to ours, which is just peanuts. We played much better against them than Derby, who were, even they should be signing worse players than us with their financial situation. So maybe we will perform better away from home. But I don't know whether we've learnt a huge amount. Usually from defeat you can, but because it was a game perhaps we were expecting to lose, I'm not sure whether McCann will be much the wiser, especially as we conceded from another set piece. So I think maybe really working on the training ground to improve those is something we should aim for.
That's 3 now in 2 games, isn't it? Not 3 in 3 games. It was 3 in 3 games, isn't it? We had the 2 against someone help me out. QPR. And then we had the one against Marco Silva. I don't know about you guys, but I remember Marco Silva when he was our manager. We tend to concede set pieces all the time.
Zonal marking.
I
have nightmares about zonal marking.
Exactly, and it just happens to me. As soon as he comes back to us, he goes, "I'll just stick one past him. Same old hole, going to concede again." Nothing's changed. Marco Silva's on board, and someone's conceding a set piece. So I'll ask this question to everyone. I'll join in with this one. Who stood out the most for you on Saturday? Start with you, Will.
That's a tough one.
It's a tough one. I'll start.
Yeah. Give me a
I've
sec.
not seen him play before, so for me, I thought Dishon Bernard stood out. I thought he had a really good game. Although he didn't win all his aerial battles and win every duel with Mitrovic is really good at what he does in terms of holding off play and rolling players. And he'll do that to some of the best in the game. You saw it last season in the Premier League when he was with Fulham, and he might not have always got the end product, but in terms of holding the ball up and keeping players away from him, he did it brilliantly. And Dishon Bernard didn't seem to step away from it at all. He wanted to engage every single time. And for me, he stood out. And if that's how he's going to be in game one against probably one of the best strikers, a striker who's going to be up there in terms of top goal scorers this season, I'm very happy to say that he's outstanding or could potentially push for the first team spot. So I was really impressed with Dishon Bernard.
Greg Docherty for me.
Greg Docherty. I thought the opposite.
But I thought he was one of the best players on the pitch. The thing is his ability to realise when the game's going wrong and to take the game by the scruff of its neck and try and single-handedly change the outcome of the game is something that he does very well. I think he's missing Honeyman. I think he's trying to find his role without Honeyman. So he's kind of dipping between defensive roles and more attacking roles and doing box to box. So he's trying to do it all. So maybe in the first few games he sort of found a little bit of inconsistency because he's still trying to find his role in that side without Honeyman. But to me, he was outstanding. His work ethic. He didn't stop running all day. He chased everything down. He was pressing. He was leading by example. It was one of them performances where he performed the way that he wanted everybody else to do it. It was literally a lead by example performance, and that's, I think, the main thing. When you go to a team like Fulham, you need to really show that you're all in it together and try and literally just run your socks off for the side. Even if you're going to lose to the better quality at the end of the day, at least you gone there and contested, which was the important thing.
I think this is one of the things that I love about football the most, is because you can have two people who me and you get on really well in terms of football, and we can have two completely different views in terms of how somebody's performed on the pitch. Because for me, Greg Docherty was one of the gaps for us. Although I totally love the fact that he wants to press a player and he wants to get the game by the scruff of the neck, but you can only do that if the other 10 men around you are doing it, or sorry, the other 9 outfield players are doing it. And if you don't do that, it's often like that guy at farther side who's just running around after everyone, and it's just creating.
You can't press by yourself.
Exactly, but again, it's an amazing quality to have, and it's something that we want in our team. But him and Honeyman complemented each other last season because with them both being box-to-box midfielders, they want both up and they want both down at the same time. There was always someone filling in and sitting in with that CDM. And I think we've missed that this season so far. What about you, Nathaniel? Who's your star player?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go with Bernard. I think he sounded quite good, and it looks like although we've got these young centre backs, they're dealing with the physical challenge of the Championship so far, perhaps. But it's just kind of maybe the marking and that sort of thing that's let us down so far. But I think, I mean, one of the players that has had a lot of criticism recently and will probably continue throughout the rest of his whole City career is Smallwood. So maybe if Bernard's doing really well, maybe it'll be like last season where you put Bernard in, but you can't drop Jones. Maybe Jones will go defensive midfield again. That's an option. And I'm confident in McCann that although it's been an amazing start, we have a lot of options, especially in midfield. So we should be able to find. I know we've got lots, so we should be able to find kind of that right solution in midfield because there are different players, and you're saying maybe Doherty's not found his role yet, but I think that's perhaps true of a few of these players, and it's a new squad. We've signed a lot of players, and a lot of come in when they perhaps didn't expect to for injuries. So I'm still confident that they can kind of gel together, but I think the international break can't come soon enough. I think we need just a little bit of time to work with the squad and these new signings and bed them in properly.
Well, reality's kicked in, hasn't it? We've realised that it's not going to be a walk in the park like it was last year. I don't think we was naive enough to go into the season thinking that, but
I think a lot of people got overconfident because of the Preston game. And thought, we can beat this team so easily. Well, obviously the Champions are going to be a breeze. Forget we're a newly promoted side.
I mean, did you have a star player on Saturday, Will?
It probably was Deshaun Bernard. I think Doherty had a good game as well, personally. But I agree on the defence. He had a really good showing from what we got. And it creates a good bit of competition in the defence, which we might be very necessary going forward to try and get this player.
I'll tell you what's a weird one, what we haven't mentioned, and you kind of feel like you can't really mention it because we'd have got beat anyway, but the first goal, it's a free kick.
It is.
It's a free kick, plain as day. I don't think I've seen a body check like that ever. Clear as day.
I mean, you can see that whoever it was, the Fulham defender who's gone up for the corner, deliberately moves into Greaves' path. Maybe you could argue that he needs to be strong enough, but Greaves, but it's a foul.
In modern football, that is a foul. It might not be a foul.
If Greaves runs through the guy who blocks him off, it's probably a penalty the other way. Do you know what I mean? It's a lose-lose situation there, isn't it? But we move on anyway. So we're currently 4 games into the Championship. We're seeing Fulham at the top of the league, as we expected. But for yourself, Will, does anything stand out in terms of any shocks or all like that?
Probably that Sheffield United I mean, maybe it shouldn't be a shock, but Sheffield United are doing as poorly maybe as they are at the moment. I think like most people, we expect them to be them, West Brom and Fulham near the top, fighting for it because of the. But 23rd, I mean, 1 point so far from the 4 games. They're still. It's like they haven't left the Premier League almost. They are in free fall as it stands.
I mean, if only we could carry on our form from the league we was in the year before. So
it's a lot easier to keep losing than it is to keep winning. That's the thing.
Yeah, I agree. They say you learn more from losing, but obviously not at this moment in time. We're not doing it, and neither are they. So you briefly touched on who's underperforming there, and who do you think's overperforming in the Championship so far?
For me personally, I don't think they are overperforming, but to a lot they are. QPR, I think. I can't understand why, but a lot of our fans, for example, in the game expected them to be not as good as they are, or expected us to be.
I fully expected them to be a playoff team, personally.
Yeah, I mean,
that was before we played them as well.
The vast majority would predict for them a solid top 6 team, and I think that that kind of label and that kind of pressure can sometimes, I don't know, hamper teams before they start. But they seem to have they look solid, they look decent, they look good going forward. They've got a lot of good players. I mean, we played really well against QPR and they managed to beat us 3-0. You know, they've got some good, set piece routines. They've got some streetwise players. They know what they're doing. And I just think that, you know, they're going to be a team that's up and in the mix. And from what the general premise that I get from a lot of people is that they didn't expect them to be up there. I mean, personally, I did, but
I hadn't predicted in my pre-season. I had him in the playoffs. There was a great form at the back end of last season.
Other teams up there, I think Coventry's a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, I was going to mention them.
They've had a great start to the season. They've been a good team late on in the games, scoring a few late injury time winners. And
it's
I don't think
never say die attitude.
Top six.
It's a never say die attitude, and it's again one of those teams a bit like Barnsley last year. You know, nobody expects them to be there or thereabouts. I know we're only 4 days in, and it's easy to say Coventry are underperforming because anything can happen. As we saw, the season we got relegated. You know, we was up there fighting, and then we lost Bowen and Grosicki, and then all of a sudden we free fall and plummet quicker than. Well, I don't want to use a reference, but it's tough, isn't it? I mean, what was your pre-season predictions, Nathaniel? And do you think you want to change anything now?
Well, I mean, regarding City, I think 19th, I said, for us. And I think if we get our better players back from injury, then, yeah, we could push towards that. I think QPR, although a lot of people have said they're dark horses, but they're not. They're just a good team. And a lot of people know they are. They're doing just as well as I thought they would. I mean, maybe, Huddersfield started really badly and then they've had 2 good results. So, I mean, it is extremely early. I think I might have said Nottingham Forest were going to be higher. And, I mean, Chris Hughton is a great manager at championship level. But they've started terribly. Yeah, that's true.
They never really stood out, did they? They never really stood out last season. Again, Nottingham Forest stand out for me massively, as does Sheffield United. And in terms of Coventry, again, that was another one that kind of stood out for me. But where do you see us getting our points from? Now, we've played a couple of games. I'd like to think we played against a team that we thought was going to be near the bottom in Derby, teams that we thought were going to be near the top in terms of Fulham and QPR. And then Preston, who we thought were mid-table. Well, I personally think we dominated Preston and they couldn't get near us.
We did.
I don't think you could argue the toss whether it would be a mixture between a brilliant Hull City performance and a poor Preston one, but you can only play the team that's in front of you. As for Derby and QPR, I mean, you couldn't have got 2 further away. You couldn't have got 2 further away performances, but still lose a game. So, who do you think we're going to get the points off after seeing who's getting points where at the moment? That's open to anybody.
Unlikely to be against Bournemouth.
I mean,
maybe. Yeah. They did draw to Blackpool, so it's not like
the teams we want to be looking at are the teams that came up with us, obviously, like Peterborough and Blackpool, and a few of those sides who have been in the Championship for a while and have kind of not stagnated, but they've kind of just sort of.
I think that word exactly
for a while.
A lot of Preston fans will say that.
I think you'd like to put the likes of Millwall, Coventry before seeing that they're 4th in the league, Luton. You know, teams like although Luton seems to be a good home team, you know, those are the sort of teams where on paper you'd think there's a chance here to get some points. Even Blackburn, you know, you'd probably throw them in the mix as well. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to get some points out there. And I don't know about you, but I can't look past the Preston performance and know full well that we've got it in the tank. We know it's there. We know we can do it. It's just about making things tick on the day. Or have we been found out already?
We shouldn't forget just how good a performance that was. I mean, we scored 4 goals away from home against although Preston fans will say that they're not happy with their board and their manager at the moment, that, they're an established championship side. But just looking at our fixtures, we've got Bournemouth, Blackburn, which we might have a chance at, and then we've got Swansea and Sheffield United. So the games don't really get any easier on paper quite soon. So I think we might need to pull off a shock result soon. Otherwise, the pressure on McCann is just going to mount and mount.
To be fair, Swansea aren't where you expect them to be either. They're down in the bottom half of the table. So 4 points in 4 games.
They're just a solid team, I think. Yeah.
They lost at home to Blackburn first game, didn't they? Away.
Oh, right. Yeah, they were pretty rubbish there. Just kept giving the ball away.
72% possession doesn't make you rubbish, though, does it? I know you've still got to do something with the ball, but to keep it for that amount of time during a game, it's not easy against a team that's in the same league as you, that's for sure.
I think the thing with City at the moment is because of those injuries to key players, we don't really know what City are like at this point, truthfully. And we won't really know for a few more games exactly what our squad's capable of, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You aim, when you're wanting to stay in a division, you want your home form to be what keeps you up. Obviously, we're only 4 games in the season. We've only played 2 home, 2 away. So you can't really predict. Well, you can't safely say how we're performing in each aspect. But we've looked concerning at home for me. Other than the QPR game, obviously, but we lost 3-0 is the main thing there. But we played so poor against Derby. And I know that Derby will have this strong sense of togetherness, and that like similar to what we did when we started that Premier League season under Phelan when Bruce left, and you got a very thin squad and everyone's giving everything for the cause kind of thing. It's important. It really is.
I think where we started to trip up under that with Mike Phelan was we all kind of thought, well, although we've only got 11 players, everyone's fighting hard for the cause. And then one by one, he started to sign new players, and these players didn't even have time to gel. They just came straight into the squad. So you saw the likes of Eldin Jakipovic was dropped, and Steve Harper. Was it Steve Harper? Yes, was it Steve Harper?
David Marshall.
David Marshall.
Worst 5 million we've ever spent.
Honestly, and then you see like it just didn't make sense, and
we didn't have a right back. We spent 5 million to replace an already great goalkeeper, rather than signing a right back when we didn't have any. It was really poor business. And Will Keane as well.
I would say is maybe the second worst £5 million signing we've made behind old Jimmy Bullard, but
that's a different topic for a different day. And for me, I'm a big Jimmy Bullard fan, so despite what he did to the club, but I think we played David Marler at right back, didn't we?
We will have done at times.
Oh, left back, one of them.
Yeah,
fullback, and Livermore centre back. It was a hodgepodge team.
Yeah, I remember that now. I actually remember. Apparently, that was. I don't know if did we all see the clip on David Marshall on the podcast? Not David Marler on the podcast.
It was blown way out of proportion. They were asking him a question about if they've ever seen a player down tools in training and refuse to train and cause such an upset that they have to leave, kind of thing. Whereas Miley was getting probed to give an example because he said he knew a few. And I think he mentioned Livermore, but the example he gave wasn't a player down in tools and giving up and saying, I'm not playing for this team anymore. It was Livermore having a hissy fit because in the training session they had, a striker that he was marking was offside, and Silva let it go on so the guy could score and have a pop at shooting. And Livermore was furious that it wasn't given an offside and booted the ball away. And then a few days later left for West Brom, but that deal was probably already in the pipeline anyway. So I don't think that was an accurate example.
No, it's amazing how you can take one clip and put it together and make it look like you bad-mouthing someone else. Well.
Yeah. People didn't listen to it properly. I don't think. If you actually watch it back, it's
he don't mention Livermore at all during the point where he's talking about.
He doesn't say Livermore refused to play for City and just stopped training and whatever. He just said he had a hitty fix. Someone was offside. That's literally it.
Yeah.
So this next part I'm really excited for. It is time for a new part in our podcast, which is called Ant's Rant. This is an interesting one. This is where Ant picks up on something that's particularly pissed him off during the week, and he's going to tell us all about it. And he's probably not going to hold back. So without any further ado, Ant, take the dance floor, mate. Go for it.
I mean, it's one of them, innit? Like, I think because I've been following City since, like, the early noughties, like 1999 era. A lot of us, there's a lot of generations of this club's supporters that have seen how bad it can be, and I've not seen the worst by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I've seen a steady incline, and probably the back end of the Championship / relegation to League One last time out was probably the worst bit about it. But I think expectations amongst the fan base get a bit over the top. Like, yes, we've had some good years in the Premier League. Yes, we've been a top end Championship team for a few years. But in the grand scheme of things, that's not who we are. That's not our level. Especially not at the moment. We're under a new club model. With a club like City is never going to be able to splash millions of pounds on players, especially not in the situation we're in, where we're trying to, like, it's got to be a happy medium. We want the owners to leave, but in order to do that, they need to recoup their loan. So do you want them to carry spending on money and staying here, or do you want them to be a bit more financially savvy, make that money back, and then they're off? Do you know what I mean? You've got to find that middle ground, and that's what we're doing. We're a club now that builds talent, sells it on for a lot of money. Jarrod Bowen, King Lewis Potter will no doubt be the next one. Jacob Greaves. That's what we're doing. We're not signing gone players, mercenary players that are on big wages that we can't offload or we get rid of for free because no one can buy them. Our level is lower half Championship, personally. In my opinion, I don't know about anybody else. I think our club level is probably mid-table Championship towards the lower end. That's where we're at. Yeah, and that's where we're at. Yeah, that's where we're at.
So what kind of happened was we probably climbed up from Division 3 to then old League One, to the new League One, into the Championship, and we found ourselves floated in there for a couple, 3-4 seasons before we then, had a great run of form and took ourselves up to the Premier League. And we tried to compete. We did, because we had the funding. Going into the Premier League, you get the money, you can go up to the Premier League and start buying players that you want to try and improve your game and make yourself more established. Unfortunately, that doesn't always work out, whether it be bad decisions made off the pitch or bad decisions made on the pitch, and you find yourself relegated, which we did. Again, you're funded again, you get the parachute payments. These are what keep you alive for maybe where you've overcompensated in the past in the Premier League to keep wage bills going, etc. With that money, we was able to go back up again. It became a bit like an up and down race. But as that funding kind of stopped, you then find yourself slipping down, as we did, with a couple of bad decisions off the pitch again. We found ourselves in League One. But I think the main thing you're trying to get out here, Ant, is, as a fan base, we just need to manage our expectations a little bit better. Because it's so easy to take to social media and just rant about a player. And don't get me wrong, social media is a safe place to be able to throw your thoughts out there, and maybe someone might want to join in or disagree with you, etc. But just manage your expectations a little bit better, because all you're doing is, if you've been to a game, you've watched a bad performance, the last thing you want to see is just everyone pulling it to pieces and just pulling all the names to shame. You don't want to see that. But sorry, and I interrupted you there, mate.
No, don't worry. I mean, the most frustrating aspect of it is we've seen what happens when this club's all going in the same direction. When the fan base, the owners, the players, when everyone's on the same page, you think the Peter Taylor era onwards.
100%, yeah.
The whole club, we knew what we were, we did what we did, and we loved it. We enjoyed the journey. I think the issue with success for maybe a decade or so means that you're going to have a generation of fans that have only known success, which means that when you get to periods of our club's history like we are right now, those people who saw the Premier League days, saw us signing the likes of Huddleston, Shane Long, Nikita Jelavic, they want that again, and they can't understand why we are where we are, when realistically the older generation of fans, or the ones from the 90s onwards, understand that we've had our little time. We tried to mix it up with the big boys. We haven't got the same recruitment facilities or the scouting network that some of the bigger clubs have, so we couldn't recruit the kind of player to keep us in the Premier League. I don't think.
Catchment area as well. Nobody wants to live in Hull.
The lure of City as a club, we're not very fashionable, so you're not going to sign some of the top class players, because we haven't got the best training facilities compared to other Premier League or top Championship clubs. We haven't got a city that thrives. We haven't got the kind of that you see in Manchester and Leeds and their financial districts and stuff. We're more of a historic traditional city, so you've got to factor all that in, and all it is really is that I'm getting at is that there's a fractured, sort of disjoint, argumentative side to City fans at the moment, which is just, it's counterproductive to what we want to achieve. Like, you want to be successful and you want to support your team, but then you're also slating them at every chance you get, and you're arguing with fans who defend them, and then vice versa, and it's tit for tat on both sides. Like, everybody's as bad as each other. I've done it. I've called people out on negativity. I've been negative in the past. And the fact that when you look back at it and see where we are and what we've done, you feel quite silly about it. So I've made the conscious effort to be a bit more savvy in the way I see a game, or reflect back on something and try and look at the bigger picture, like running 4 games into the season, for example, stuff like that.
a lot of that comes down to empathy, and empathy plays a big part in being able to manage expectations, because once you're able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes or understand somebody else's point of view, it makes discussing things a hell of a lot easier, and it means you can get on the same wavelength as others. I'm going to briefly touch on this because I think a lot of this has stemmed back from the moment Alan Out started. The moment Alan Out started, that's when the fan base really became divided, because you found those at the beginning that really just went 100%, I hate the Allams, I am not going anymore. And those that took a little bit longer to maybe detest the Allams. And that's where the divides always come. I mean, it happened to me and my mates. I didn't want to go protest because I don't protest for something I don't believe in. And as time's gone on, I've then started to agree with my old mates, and they probably sort of yelled at me. Do I go, oh, well done, you started first? But it is what it is in that aspect. But we could go on about the Alam Out for hours and hours.
Unfortunately, we won't see a club unified until they leave.
It's a shame because
it is, because obviously I'm not a fan of what they did. Like, I boycotted myself for a few years. I bought a membership. I know I've not attended a home game yet, but I bought a membership this season, trying fully intend to come back when work allows. But it's one of these things, like, all right, we tried boycotting, we tried staying away, we tried protesting, we tried chanting. They're still here. I know that they've gone against a lot of the things that they said, and I can fully understand. I'm not a fan of them myself. I really didn't like what they did. Some of the things they said, but it's a case now where we've got a team that we can be proud of. We've got a lot of local lads, and the old cliche, support the team, not the regime. That's what we should be now. Last season proved that we've got a side that's worth supporting, and rather than staying away and it really having no effect, like the Alams don't care. If you're staying at home, EAB don't care. If you go into the stadium, the players care, and that's literally
if they do care, they've got a funny way of showing it, haven't they? They've got a really weird way of showing that they care. As far as we're all concerned, I think we're all in the same boat. Is they're happy to just get the money back and then leave, hopefully sell for a profit. But you mentioned about the fan base. We've all grown up, especially the newer fans at the moment. I say newer, like I'm not one of the new ones. It's 18 years now, but we've all seen success. I mean, from me, all I've seen is from Division 3 all the way up to the Premier League, to then hitting European football and FA Cup finals and stuff like that. And now we're back down in League One and back up to the Championship. And unless you're level-headed, you're going to see that as a bit of a negative. And where we can correlate is because we're not a big club, we see other people in our local area support the big clubs like your Manchester Uniteds and Arsenals. Now, I'm seeing similar people the same age as me who grew up supporting Arsenal, the Invincibles. And now they're on that same boat as us, where they're going, this ain't all winning all the time. And the same with Manchester United, to the treble in 99.
Yeah, I don't like being compared to Arsenal fans.
No, but you know what I mean, though, in terms of they had that winning feeling, all we've seen is success, and now they don't have that anymore. And
it is very easy to get carried away, is the bottom line of it. I mean, it like I said, it all comes down to what you're used to as a fan. Like, you're not going to accept any level below what you started watching them, kind of thing, unless you're, wise enough to understand the full history of the team and look at it and see our levels and whatnot. It's like I remember trying to see past people at Boothry Park because I was that small and playing Kettering Town and Rushden Diamonds at Boothry Park.
People can't hold you up all game, can they? So
and then going to the Emirates and beating Arsenal 2-1 was something of like, it was a fairy tale, and it's sad that 07-08 season really was probably the last time that the club was fully unified and just enjoying everything that happened. Like, you think of the second half of that Premier League season in 07-08 was woeful, but we stuck behind the team. We were all still there and we all still cheered. And that's the kind of perspective you need.
That 4-3-1-2 was brilliant. But that kind of wraps up Ant's rant. He's got something off his chest now, and I have no doubt next week he's gonna.
I just want us all to be friends.
Yeah. Hopefully next week he brings something else to the table and gives us something else, like a sore subject to talk about.
I'll find something.
So one of the things I wanted to discuss with everyone is we are struggling a little bit at the moment, and when you're struggling and the transfer window's open, one of the best things you can do is delve into the market. So I'm going to put the question to yourself first. Will, is Tyler Smith the right man? Here we go. This is what's been ticking out all week.
You know what? I'm going to say yes because he's different, and we're not going to spend money. And that's the reason why, essentially, because the way that, like, as Anna's already said about our business, the way that we do it at the moment, we're not going to get anyone on decent wages, and we're not going to get anyone who's like of a big name, really, because they're going to cost money or cost wages. So I think going for someone who's a bit younger, it fits in with the ethos of the team. Going for someone who's different from our other strikers, which is what we needed. I think it's a good idea. I understand people being a bit like, oh, I've never heard of him, or I don't like when there's other options available, which is fair enough. But I'm willing to give him a chance. And I'm a bit annoyed that people do seem to be like, he's not played a minute, I don't like him. I know not everyone's like that. But there's a few people who've been like that. But I'm willing to give him a chance if he is him anyway. It might not even be Tyler Smith who comes in, let's be honest. But
well, it's heavily linked to it. And I think a Derby game, that'd just give us a completely different view, wouldn't it? If for instance, we've got Josh McGuinness all game battling with the likes of Curtis Davis and Phil Jagielka, you bring this guy on to maybe make him think different, give him a yard because they think they're going to get outpaced. It opens up the game completely, and they drop off a yard. And in football, that yard in between the defence and the midfield is massive. And if you can create a yard in there, you've got so much more so much more space to play in. So that could have given us a completely different approach to the game for a second half or an impact sub or something like that. But and obviously you remember the good days and the good times we had in the Premier League. One of the players who was a fan's favourite was Kamil Grosicki. We've just seen him sign for, I can't remember the name of the Polish side, but he has just signed for a team in his home country. That's the one. I wasn't going to be able to pronounce that tonight.
That's fair enough.
We've just seen him sign for them, and I can imagine it's not on the best wages. They're not a household name. Have we missed out there?
Personally, no. The thing was with the thing is people, like, when you said that people view things differently in football, I liked Grosicki, but I just felt like we never ever saw a consistently great Kamil Grosicki. I think he had like one good game and then he'd be a passenger for 5 or 6, and it was really frustrating because if he played to his full potential every game, he'd be one of the best players in the league. I think at his current age, his work rate, I don't think he fits our current, high press system. You've got to work hard. You've got to be up and down that line. If we had Grosicki out on the left-hand side instead of Lewis Potter, who's been, supporting Elder, for example, Grosicki wouldn't do that, and we'd be found out a lot more. And I just don't think that that's the kind of player that we need to be signing, personally.
What I would say real quickly, actually, is on the old thing of him going to Sechin, that is his hometown club.
Oh, is it?
So it is, yeah. So I think it's a sensible. I completely understand that move straight away.
Yeah.
No, I agree. But again, if he was on the books, he would give us that other option up top. We played him up top a couple of times, and he did look dangerous running through the middle in terms of getting him behind, making defenders think, and sometimes just running at a centre back. Centre backs don't like to tackle. They're about out muscling and jumping. And I mean, some of them do. We saw it with James Chester; he was phenomenal. But in terms of centre backs, not many of them like to tackle. So, but going on from there, there's other ex-City players available at the moment, and I've mentioned one of them there in terms of James Chester. Elmo's available, and so is Robbie Brady, and these players have brought a lot of good times to us. And I'm going to ask you, Nathaniel, do you think any of them are fit enough to wear the shirt? And if they are, would you have them back?
Well, I just disregard the fact whether they're fit to wear the shirt or anything like that. I mean, we were just talking about managing expectations. We can afford young attacking players, who is going to grow into something like Tyler Smith, but we cannot afford former Premier League players. So, Huddleston is like an outlier. He's come back because no one else would hire him. It would be great to see Grosicki or Brady playing for us, or El Mohammadi, but it's just not going to happen. We can't afford bang average players, from their championship. So we can't afford these players. It'd be great to see them, but we just got to manage expectations, and we can't afford these players. So I think Tyler Smith and young players like that that might grow into something that will help. If we get them and we can pay off the loan and the Alams leave quicker. But if we sign Robbie Brady and he inevitably gets injured for a whole year, then that's not going to help anyone.
I mean, I really appreciate you burst my bubble there.
It's frustrating. Like,
no, I get it, because you think the bigger picture, and I think a lot of people would say the same. And it's easy to have this view where you go, well, we can afford Huddleston. I bet Huddleston was on more money than that, and that's probably why Derby was struggling.
I would imagine.
Pardon?
I can imagine we can only afford Huddleston.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Mm-hmm.
But realistically speaking, and if you was to, I don't know if you know much about the free agents that are about at the moment. I did drop a couple in the group chat last night, but for me, if we could land any of them, and I hope he's still available, would be someone like Andre Wisdom. I think he'd fit the bill perfectly. He's been around the town a bit now. He knows what the dance is, especially in this league. He would really fill a gap and do it really well. So, I mean, what about you? And I think you was mentioning an ex-City player in the chat last night.
I'd love Chester back. I mean, the thing is you've got to, like when we said before about managing expectations and whatnot. I know that there's a lot of players that we probably can't afford, but then there's probably going to be some players that want to play, and some clubs would be fine. Like we've got to remember, under embargo, and we can only have a certain amount of players. So you've got to think you need enough cover in each position realistically. And the one position we're crying out for a bit of experience right now is centre back. I don't want us to sign another winger or another midfielder. We're fine in that aspect. Like I know we've got a few injuries in the wing, but when they all come back and we've signed another winger, like they're not going to play.
Are they? No.
So you've wasted a squad space for a couple of games. And at the back, we know Greaves is good. We know Jones is good. Bernard showed promise. We know McLaughlin can sort of mix it up in the Championship from his time last time, so we'll have a bit of spine about him now. But we need a leader there. Like, they need a bit of streetwise. They need to learn how to be a bit rough and tumble with some of these nastier Championship strikers like Mitrovic. You know, you've got to be able to mix it up and, drop a couple of elbows secretly now and again. And I don't think our current centre-backs are going to do that. But
we're too honest, aren't we? We're too honest.
Yeah.
James Chester or Wisdom I think would fit the bill, and it's players that aren't Wisdom's a free agent, so I don't know if we can sign him. I think if we sign Smith, it has to be a loan, doesn't it? I'm not sure. The ruling's weird. I don't know what it is. I think if we sign Smith, it's only a loan spot that's available. So realistically, you'd want to be loaning a centre back, and that's the only reason I suggested Chester, is because obviously he's another Huddleston-esque signing. He knows the club is being a he's fallen out of favour at Stoke, and as Will said, his stock has fallen. But Huddleston's stock had fallen. He'd not played for a year. He had an entire season out of football. He's come back and he looks fine. Like, Stoke will want him off the books if he's not playing. And we can pay a percentage of his wage. I know we're not going to be able to pay 100% of his wages, but we can pay what we can afford and get an experienced centre-back in there. Then all parties win, don't they? You've got to look at what's available. Like, because of the restrictions, we can't pick and choose what players we
Beggars
get.
Can't be choosers.
From what's available. Yeah, you've got to choose from the best of the pool that we've got. And that's not very large pool.
It's not a big pool. The talent pool's not the best. And I think in an ideal world, I think there's a few City fans out there that probably agree with me. And it's not going to happen, let's be realistic. But there's some ex-City players out there. And if we could drag the likes of David Marler back out of retirement, we know Robbie Brady's available, Elmo's available, Chester's available. What a year to be back alive that'd be.
That would be lovely, wouldn't it? Even if we finish bottom.
It would be phenomenal, but that kind of wraps up the signings that I wanted to talk about there. Unless you guys got anything you want to add to there in terms of.
No, on the Tyler Smith thing again about people being he's not played. When we signed Chester, when we signed players like Dudgeon and Brady and players like that, they were all players who came from youth teams who had barely played.
100%.
Harry Wilson.
And look at what they've done. Fraser Campbell.
Lots. You could make lots of examples.
A lot of players come through in the last decade and a half who are players who have been at bigger clubs and had any virtually no experience come through, and they've become great players for us.
Yeah.
So,
I did want to add on to the Smith as well, to be fair, because it's everyone's crying out for a different kind of striker. We all know we've got Eves and McGuinness, who are very similar kind of strikers, the big target men that we want to hold it up. If you want to be able to change the system or change the formation or have a plan B, you need a different kind of striker. And as we said, the current pool that we can pick from is very limited. So if we want to sign a player that's going to be worth more than what they currently are now, it needs to be a young player. And the best way to judge a player is by the ex-fans. So the fans of teams that he's played for. And he's had positive results at every single team he's been at. Yes, he's not a prolific goal scorer, but sometimes that's not everything. Like they're not
Aaron
at
McLean.
peak. There's still stuff to learn. There's still stuff to adapt. And if all of the positive feedback we've had from him is true, then we've got another player there to switch to a 4-4-2 and maybe get the best out of Eves. And it's what they bring to the team, more or less, just their own statistics. So, we might see a more positive and more versatile City from signing this player. And I can't understand why you'd even be negative about it. If we'd have signed Jacob Greaves, say he wasn't our player and he was a Cheltenham player, because obviously that's when he was on loan in League Two. And then we signed him last season and he had the season he had, would people have still criticised him saying, "Oh, you were signing League Two players"?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You make a valid point there. Really good point.
You've got players that Jamie Vardy puts in the non-league. Look at him; he's a Premier League superstar.
I think what it comes down to, I don't know if you guys agree with me again, but Alex Ferguson was probably still known as one of the best managers ever. And he made a really good point about Wayne Rooney before, in terms of he hadn't scored for 8 games and the fans were telling him to drop him. It might be 8 games, it might be 7 games, but he basically said in his press conference, because unless he doesn't score for 9 games, I'm not dropping him. Next game, he scores an hat-trick. And I'm not saying he can write the future or anything like that, but you kind of got to give people time to gel, because you've got to improve people's muscle memory, instincts, used to being around the same people, and that sort of stuff doesn't come easily, which is why I find it a little bit unfair to give the likes of Tom Eaves criticism.
Maybe.
Right, so that kind of moves on to the last part. Now, I want to kind of recap, not recap. Sorry, I want to wind up now and finish off by previewing the Bournemouth game. The Bournemouth game itself, for me, is going to be a tough one. They've scored 2 goals every game this season. They've got a very young squad. I was looking at the squad today, actually, in build up to this, and I think their average squad is something like 23 years old for every lineup they've had so far. Yeah, it's got to be, because I feel like centre backs 19, centre mids are 20. I think the oldest player they've got in every game so far has been like a 30-year-old, but he's the only one. The rest are all like 23, 24.
They have just signed Gary Cahill as well.
That's going to bring it up.
That'll take the average up.
That's going to bring it up. But they've got a really young squad. They're hard to beat, and with young teams, we all know they're exciting to watch. And with the likes of Scott Parker, we know exactly what to expect from him. He generated exciting football, didn't he? So, what's your thoughts? What do you think is going to happen? Not so much a scoreline, but what do you think is going to happen, Will? How do you see the game panning out?
I think it's going to be similar to the Fulham game. I think it's going to be Bournemouth are going to be probably have more of the ball, have a bit more control of the game, and City are going to have to sort of weather the storm a little bit and try and get them on the break and try and make them make mistakes. It's going to be a tough game. It won't be as tough as Fulham, but it's definitely going to be one of the trickiest games of the season overall. So I don't know score-wise, but it's going to be a tough one.
We'll hold off on the score for the time being.
Thank God.
Steady on.
You're peaking too early, mate. You're peaking too early. But no, we're playing at home, aren't we? We haven't had the best time at home already, so it does look like it's going to be a difficult game. I mean, for you, Ant, does anybody get dropped who loses a spot after the performance on Saturday?
I don't think I would. If you had to pick one, I'd probably maybe give Eves a game. Just because.
Are you okay, Ant?
Yeah, I know. That's not like me, is it? But I don't think the team played bad. I don't think anyone merits dropping. Like a lot of people will probably be calling for Ingram's head. I mean, Ingram, yes, he's made a couple of mistakes that have led to us conceding and therefore losing. But for the rest of the game, like his superb performance and his saves have all been ignored for some reason.
Yeah,
that's the life of a keeper, isn't it? A mistake usually is very, very costly, and that's what people judge you on. But I think he's played fine.
We completely forget that the ball's just come through 10 other players first as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think Eves is chomping at the bit to have a go, and I think it'd be a very risky move to do it. But I think McGuinness is struggling for supply at the moment. Like we keep hoofing it long, and I think Eves is better at winning headers than McGuinness is. And Eves is also more mobile than McGuinness is. So if we are wanting for some reason to start playing hoofball this season, then Eves is a better option to do that. But like I said, no one really merits dropping. Like, I'd be quite happy for McGuinness to start again. It's just, we have played well, but we're very good on the counter. So we'll play better against Bournemouth than what we will against Derby, because we don't like to break defensive teams down. That's not our forte. That's not what we like to do.
Struggled last year.
Derby wasn't deep though. Derby was a lot higher than we were. And there wasn't.
No, they were. But then when it came to the crunch time towards the end of the game, where we were chasing it and needed a goal, and they just pretty much put 11 players at the back, we just never looked like scoring, did we? And it's the likes of Fulham, where they're going to commit players, and Bournemouth, where they're going to commit players forwards, and then we've got players like Lewis Potter and Williams, who I think looks very good, and for some reason is also getting a bit of flack. I think they look very pacey and very dangerous on the counter, so that'd be my approach: just absorb the pressure and try and hit them on the break.
I think the thing for me is I just want McGuinness to try and stay on side a little bit more. I'm happy with
he has been offside a few times.
I'm happy with some part of the work ethic he puts in, but
I noticed the difference in people criticising him for being offside compared to criticising Eves for being offside is quite amazing, because there's a massive difference in the number who do it.
If it was Eves playing for the last 2 games, he'd have been crucified.
Oh yeah,
for doing the exact same.
I'd fear for his well-being if Eves had been playing. Yeah, I mean, look, I like him. I just don't know whether he's cut out for the Championship. But I think if we were going to change a striker, I'd bring in Tyler Smith, because, I mean, if we're saying we're going to be playing on the counter and he's the plan B and plan A isn't working, so maybe just before the game, put him in. I don't think that'll happen. I think the side might be the same, except Jones might come back in if he's fit. He might be, I think, Thursday or Friday back in training, I think McCann said. But yeah, I think you keep the side the same. I just think they've got to change the way they play. We've been lumping it to McGuinness more, and I don't think he's as good as that. I don't think the solution is put on Eves to make that work. I think the solution is change the way we're playing, or just go back to how we did last year.
We need to go back to what we do best and putting the ball on the deck and playing it about. But I think teams are fathomed out quite early that we like to play out from the back. They do press high, and it results in us having to hit it long. We just need to find a way around it.
Exactly. I think we've been a little bit unlucky in terms of teams finding us out, and with the wide men, they're having to adapt the game. We saw last season a lot of the time they didn't have many defensive duties, and now they've got these defensive duties. If we do play along him, the one time it does stick with McGuinness, there's no support for him.
There's no support
because the wingers are already there back helping, and you're asking a hell of a lot from a winger to be able to come up and down all game. So
it's why you need to be slightly better at holding the ball up. So rather than flicking it on or playing it straight out, we need to be holding the ball, bringing the midfield into it, and then playing it over the top, which is, I think, something we'll probably learn to do in the next few games, because they need to
adapt. We have to adapt. Yeah. It's simple as that. So I'll round up now then. In terms of predictions, then, well, what are you thinking? Scoreline, and give me a fair score if you've got enough.
Heart or head?
Just whatever you think's best. If let's say if you used to put money on it.
Right, I would never bet on City for a start. But I'm gonna be positive. I'm gonna say 1-0 City, because even though
that's your heart speaking.
That is my heart speaking.
It doesn't gamble that often.
But I'll be very happy with a draw.
Who's scoring?
Oh, Eves.
So is it 8.5 minutes then, is it?
Yeah, don't bet that.
What about you, Ant? Who are you going for? Who's scoring first, and what's the score?
I think this will be our first draw of the season. I think we'll draw 1-1. I think they'll go 1-0 in front, as is the rhythm at the moment, and then we'll score. I'm gonna say Jacob Greaves set piece to equalise it.
Let's hope you do come to the game then, because like I mentioned, your mate stands next to us, and every like I said on the last podcast, every single game he puts Jacob Greaves on to score £5 every time. And he'll celebrate together. You know him already, so it's going to be a great reunion, and he's going to win a boatload of money and probably get the round in after the game for us. So, what a moment that'd be. Nathaniel, what about you?
Well, I'll stick with the prediction I went on the Cherries Red Army YouTube channel earlier when I did a preview for that. 3-1 Bournemouth, and that's my head. I think we'll get a goal. Just saying that out of hope, really, because it'd be nice to have one after 3 goalless games. But I think Bournemouth might have too much for us. But I wouldn't be surprised if we nicked something. Got a draw. But I think Bournemouth are a good side and we're not great. So 3-1, and then maybe the score. I'll start the Tyler Smith propaganda. I think I'll get one off the bench.
It's not even signed for us yet, and we're pretty.
I know he's not even.
I know he's signing.
You've already.
It's going to happen.
Are we not going for your other mate, the one we've been linked with tonight?
Jack Byrne, Oldham Athletic legend. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that'll happen. He's just some winger. Jordan Flores 2.0. I'm naming him. But it'd be great if we could just
sign now for your sake.
I'm just really excited we're signing a striker that isn't 30 and a big lump. It's the first time in a few years, so it better happen. Otherwise, I might just. I've got my ticket for the Bournemouth game, but if we don't sign him, I might just not turn up.
That's a good point.
I'm going for him.
Even in the Eves and McGuinness, when we signed both of them, we signed Balog as well, didn't we? He was another big lump. We just signed 3 giant centre forwards.
Completely forgot about him.
Oh yeah, completely. Norbert Balog. How did you pronounce it? Norbert.
Yeah, I thought he was quite a tidy player.
I liked him for the 1.5 games he played for us.
He played well against Forest when he came on. That's what I remember. That's the only thing I remember.
Forest fans still think he dived, but then he got injured and never played for us ever again.
I'm gonna go for a 2-2. I think I'm gonna go for a Desmond, and I think we'll score first this time, just to go against all the records. I think we'll score first. We're 2-0 up, and I think we'll concede later on. And I'm gonna go for Greg Docherty to shut me up and put us 1-0 up.
Yeah, right.
But football's a funny thing, and it's typical of us. I said this last time just before Fulham. It's typical of us to go there and get a result. I'm going to say it's typical again for us to get a result or get a point against Bournemouth. But I think for me, I'm wishful thinking there. I think they dominate us and we just stay in the game. But that kind of rounds up today's podcast. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining me. Will and Nathaniel, it's been a pleasure again hosting. I've really enjoyed it. And I'd like to wish everyone the best luck and hope you all have a great day on Saturday when we beat the Cherries. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Up the Tigers.
Cheers.